A story night, a pregnant woman is struck by lightning, ending her life. The doctor informs her husband Greg that she tragically died during childbirth, then taken to see the baby who undergoes a brainwave test. Unfortunately, upon seeing the pale baby, he is so overwhelmed with grief that he rejects the child. The baby is afflicted with albinism, a genetic condition causing a lack of pigmentation, Greg. His grandparents adopt him, but over the years they both pass away. The day his grandfather is found dead, the town's sheriff contacts a social worker who discovers that the boy has been hidden for years in the basement of the house. His grandparents told him that when they died, some people would take him away, seeing that he was different from others. His name is Jeremy Reed. He's nicknamed Power, which means powdered, something offensive to refer to his lack of pigmentation. Jeremy has no formal education, having never left home, which prevented him from knowing many things, especially in the technological aspect. Despite this, he's a rather intelligent young man, having never left home, which prevented him from knowing many things, especially in the technological aspect. Despite this, he's a rather intelligent young man. He has studied and memorized each of the books. Powder claims he can recite every paragraph of all the books he owns. Upon hearing this, Jess selects a challenging book typically intended for students and asks him to recite a specific page number to her great surprise. Powder recites the first paragraph of that page without any errors. Then, Powder accompanies Jessie out of the basement, and she takes him to a boys' home as he is now under state custody upon their arrival. The other boys are captivated by Powder's appearance, as they have never seen anyone like him before. Later that night, as Powder dines at the inn, a band of bullies approaches him. Leader John demands that Powder balance a spoon on his nose in a surprising turn of events. Powder takes the spoon from John's hands and begins to manipulate it. He makes it stand upright on the table and effortlessly draws other spoons towards it. This astonishes all the boys present, and they assume Powder is some kind of monster. On the other hand, Doug returns home after work and finds his son Steve at the door. Their strained relationship is evident as they pass each other without exchanging a single word. It appears Steve has come to see his sick mother, Emma, who is bedridden due to cancer. The caretaker informs Doug that seeing their son has brought Emma a sense of healing, far beyond what any painkiller could provide a few days later. Powder enrolls in high school and attends a physics class. During the class, Professor Ripley demonstrates a device called the Jacob Ladder, which generates an electric current when the machine is turned on. Powder begins to feel uneasy and starts trembling. Suddenly, the machine overloads and discharges a powerful bolt of electricity directly into Powder's chest, causing him to levitate in the air. Horrifying all the students present in the class, Don Leese frantically tries to turn off the machine, but to no avail. He then destroys it with a chair, finally ending the chaos. Afterward, all the students rush out of the class while Powder remains unconscious on the floor, worried that he might be deceased. Donald approaches him and touches his body. Surprisingly, the teacher experiences a strange sensation that raises the hair on his arms and plunges him into some sort of altered state. In the next scene, Powder is rushed to the hospital. Powder has escaped from the hospital. Apparently, he jumped out of the window when there was no one there. Meanwhile, Power walks down the street when he encounters one of his classmates, Lindsey. They engage in a brief conversation while being watched by a curious neighbor afterwards. Powder continues his journey back to his grandparents' house. However, he is eventually captured by Doug and his colleague Duncan, who ask him to get into the car back at school. Powder is taken to a conference room to discuss his exceptional intellect. The principal personally visits him and reveals that the results of his IQ test are out. It turns out that Powder's IQ is over 300, which is much higher than that of the smartest person in the world. The principal announces that he is a unique and extraordinary individual. Asks to be allowed to go home. High school students accompanied by Doug and Duncan go camping in the woods that night. As the students gather around a bonfire, Powder sits alone. Seeing this, Doug approaches him, and the two start talking at the same time. A storm begins, and Powder mentions that he can feel the storm within himself. He expresses that when he sees lightning, he feels a magnetic attraction towards it, and when he hears thunder, he wets his pants the next morning. As Powder airs in the woods, he is approached by bullies John and Mitch for no apparent reason. John points his gun at Powder, saying he can kill him on the spot. However, before he can pull the trigger, a gunshot is heard in the distance, diverting everyone's attention. He rushes in that direction and discovers that Duncan has shot a cert powder is deeply affected by the sight, empathetically feeling the dying CR's pain and fear. When he can't take it anymore, he grabs Duncan's wrist with one of his hands while placing the other on the CR's neck. Surprisingly, powder transfers the SCR's pain and fear sensations to Duncan, causing violent convulsions in him. The following day, powder is brought back to Jesse, who questions him about what happened. She is genuinely concerned for his well-being and state of mind. However, Powder ignores all her questions and declares that he wishes to go home. When she continues to insist, he becomes angry and inadvertently unleashes his powers, causing glasses and lights to shatter. He then walks away confidently, stating that Jess won't be able to keep him there for long. The next day, Powder sits alone in the dining room when Donald approaches him. Previous incident in class, he describes this energy as extremely powerful, allowing him to feel young again. He also talks about Einstein's theory that if a person uses 1% of their brain, they can do unimaginable things. Perhaps Powder is capable of doing just that, which explains his incredible powers. The scene then shifts to a county fair where Pear meets Lindsey. She seems to be the only one who does not treat him differently. After some discussion, Power suddenly touches Lindsey's hands. She then abruptly kisses him, attracting the attention of nearby people. Unfortunately, Lindsey's father also notices the act, prompting him to confront Powder and subject him to hurtful insults. He also prepares to beat the poor boy, but fortunately, Jessie, who is also at the fair, intervenes. She apologizes on Powder's behalf and takes him away. Later, Powder heartbrokenly returns to the inn and gathers his belongings with the intention of running away to his farm. However, as he leaves, he encounters boys playing basketball. Curious, he heads towards the court to find out that it is John, and his gang. Powder wants nothing to do with them, so he tries to leave, but bullied John blocks his path and takes his hat. Suddenly, rain begins to fall, and John forcibly drags Powder outside. He humiliates the poor boy by undressing him and pushing him into the muddy water to add color to his pale skin. Unable to bear any more humiliation, Powder triggers a powerful electromagnetic pulse of spherical shape, causing all the bullies to fly. After a brief moment, everyone regains their calm. Except John. Worried Mitch watches him and discovers that his heart has stopped beating. He is actually at death's door. Realizing what he has done, Powder is immediately filled with regret, so he quickly springs into action and begins administering CPR to the bully using his powers. Fortunately, the procedure works and John is revived. When Powder arrives home, he discovers that all his belongings have been seized by the bank. Shortly after, Jessie comes to him, offering comfort and assuring him that she will find a better place where he will be accepted and understood. Unlike now, Donald also joins them, and as they prepare to leave, he meets Doug and Duncan outside. Jessie asks for Doug's support, urging him to let the boy go. Surprisingly, the officer agrees. At that moment, a storm breaks out, and Power begins to run across the field with everyone in tow. Suddenly, lightning strikes him, ending up engulfing him in a blinding flash. The film ends as the clouds release one final resounding, thunderous roar, indicating that Powder has once again reached the skies. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more.